I ask you to consider, if this is affirmed, and if the Board of Regents are the Board of Directors, and if President Kerr, in fact, is the manager, then I tell you something, the faculty are a bunch of employees, and we're the raw materials. But we're a bunch of raw materials that don't mean to have any process upon us, don't mean to be made into any product, don't mean to end up being bought by some clients of the university, be they the government, be they industry, be they organized labor, be they anyone. We're human beings.
In America, black people are treated very much as the Vietnamese people or any other colonized people, because we're brutalized. The police in our community occupy our area, our community, as a foreign troop occupies territory. And the police are there not to, in our community, not to promote our welfare or for our security and our safety, but they're there to contain us, to brutalize us and murder us, because they have their orders to do so. And just as the soldiers in Vietnam have their orders to destroy the Vietnamese people, the police in our community couldn't possibly be there to protect our property, because we own no property. They couldn't possibly be there to see that we receive the due process of law, for the simple reason that the police themselves deny us the due process of law. And so it's very apparent that the police are only in our community, not for our security, but the security of the business owners in the community, and also to see that the status quo is kept intact.
These are leaders of the nationwide youth organization that calls itself SDS, Students for a Democratic Society. It has more than 300 chapters on the college campuses of America. Its national and local leaders, in convention here at the Chicago Coliseum, June 1969, take the major credit for the rioting, mob actions, takeovers, and burnings on college and university campuses throughout the nation.
Since we've been finding out about the organization of SDS, we've always been quite willing to talk about
We'll talk about socialism anywhere, in the streets or in the Senate, anywhere, you know. I'm Mike Klonsky, National Secretary of SDS, and this is Bernadine Dorn, Interorganizational Secretary.
So you were... Is there a communist faction making a big power play for SDS at this
time? Is there any communists back here? I guess there is.
Our program is going to be to come back on the campuses this fall and hit them harder than they've ever been hit before. The struggle that is going to ultimately defeat United States imperialism is going to be an international struggle. It's going to be an armed struggle. It's going to be a struggle that's going to have to take place in the third world against U.S. imperialism and in the mother country against U.S. imperialism. We must be clear on how the final struggle will be waged, and we must be a part of that struggle.
That's what you got, America. They're all into Freud. Say to them, hey, man, we're all getting laid, man. We're listening to music. We're having a groovy time. What do you want to work for? Talk to them about full unemployment. They know you don't work, and they're very intrigued by that. We don't work. No, I don't work, man. I'm just fucking around having a good time. That's disgraceful. They hate that in America. Don't work. Of course we don't work. I'm never gonna work. What do you guys want to work for? For some haggy old wife and some kids that don't respect you?
And I think the cause of their paranoia, because they're paranoid, is our paranoia. It's a mirror reflecting system. The two images are just reflecting each other. Paranoia building up like in a barroom brawl. The more we think in terms...
If you keep this up, I'm going to ask you to read more poetry.
Oh. Why don't I sing instead?
No, it's just that in politics you are a little bit naive.
Well, that's a language naive.
Yeah.
I come from an old tradition.
We give up the system. We're down. We give it to whoever wants to take it. We vex ourselves out of the system, and we give it all up.
I understand that there are some people that are trying to rescue you from time to time.
Oh, the Jesus people, yeah. Yeah, the Jesus people have, in other words, people see that this is the end, that a revolution's coming, or a lot of big changes are coming. And the Jesus people are slipping into the minds of all the people that are confused and don't know where to go.
Do you feel that the end is in sight and a change is coming also?
Big changes are coming real soon.
You're kind of thinking the same way they are then, aren't you?
Well, everyone you meet talks about it.
Even the little old ladies who sit on the corner who have had their welfare checks taken away, and the little old man and all those people, they all come on this corner every day of the week, yelling about revolution and that about the people who are in power better give it up. Nixon better give it up, because if he doesn't, the whole thing's going to be destroyed.
The hole has got a hole in the floor. It's just a flat hole, you floor, and it's just a hole. And one of the things about it, they had the thing stopped up. They don't flush, you can't flush it from inside. It's flushed from outside by somebody else. The thing was stopped up. So I was in there about half an hour or so, and it flushed. But it was stopped up, and the defecation and urine and toilet paper and crap come all back up in the floor, and I'm standing in 2 inches of water now, with defecation and everything, So I watched, this little porthole, got thick glass on it, you can see through it like so. So I'm watching and see if somebody passing. Every once in a while I try to bang on this door, but it's almost soundproof, People can hear you kind of banging on it, but not much. Tell these dudes this damn thing is stopped up in here, and, and fall apart. And the cats knew it was stopped up. They knew it, And not till late that night, man, when the shift had changed, you see what I mean? One of the guards that got some human sense. In fact, they'd given me some food in a plate, and through the little porthole. Well, see, what the water recedes, flushes up, and it sits there for an hour. It takes an hour for it to recede back down, and they flush it back up.
So where were you all the time?
Every hour and a half. Yeah, I was in the middle of the crap, until the stuff receded, and I could sit back on the floor, possibly. I couldn't stand up all that time,
Yeah.
And,
were you hanging up on the bars and stuff trying to...
There's no bars. It's a box. It's a box. It's a box. There's no hole. It's a door. A big, thick door. A big, thick steel door, And it's a cold floor. You have to sleep on the cold floor. You don't have no bed in the hole. It's a 7 feet long, 5 feet wide box.
So what'd you do to keep yourself fit or to keep yourself sane when you're in there?
Oh, in the hole?
Yeah.
You see, this is where you beat the cats. See, when you're revolutionary, you don't, they can't break your spirit that way. You see what I mean? The real thing is you understand the psychology of the cops. They are the ones who really couldn't stand to be in there. That's why they create that kind of thing. You see what I mean? They are the ones who really couldn't stand to be in there. It's their minds, that they're scared of that hole, you see. Once you understand that their psychology, deep down inside, they can say everything they want to say, but them cops are really scared of that hole. That's why they create something that they fear, you see what I mean? Which makes them hate. It's a basis of hate and false fears that they have. So they create the most detrimental things. That's the basis of hate. You see how you can describe their hate, you see.
So how did you whip Psycho and them when they came back?
I don't worry. I tell you, I'm a man who believed that I died 20 years ago. And I live like a man who is dead already. I have no fear whatsoever of anybody or anything.
Now I want you to, before I begin, to take a look at all of the pressmen before you. You will notice that not one of them are black. And they are going to have the nerve tomorrow to call me a racist. Will you hear? I understand that Bobby urged us to stand up and speak out against injustice. Well, we could tell him that we don't need anybody to tell us to stand up anymore. Not only are we going to stand up, we're going to right the wrongs of our people in this generation. Our generation has the memories of the unpunished murders of Swerney, Goodney, and of Medgar Evers. There are going to be no more unpunished murders. They've been telling you that the kids in Nashville started a riot. Number one, you ought to recognize it is not a riot, it is a rebellion. A rebellion. And number two, you ought to be proud proud of your black brothers and sisters at Fifth because the honky cops touched one of them and they told them you got to touch all of them.
Dr. King's policy was that nonviolence would achieve the gains for black people in the United States. His major assumption was that if you are nonviolent, if you suffer, your opponent will see your suffering and will be moved to change his heart. That's very good. He only made one fallacious assumption. In order for nonviolence to work, your opponent must have a conscience. The United States has none. Has none.
Really a bad place to be in.
The best thing we've done so far is talk to the people at Berkeley, and we think we had some influence in holding back any violence that was going to come out of that. and we believe that, and we talk to them solid every hour
You
before
have
the
talked
march
to
and
them
after.
during this last week.
We talk to them every day. We talk on the phone, on the radio station, live.
I saw them throwing rocks at cops just a couple of days ago. You better talk to them a little more.
Well, nobody got shot this time, did they?
No, nobody got
And
shot.
what are you
this
doing
time.
about it?
What am I doing about it? I'm cheering the police. That's
Well, the police
precisely
think
what
you
I'm
do.
doing about it.
Why? Why?
What about during World War II? If Hitler and Churchill had gotten into bed, which Hitler would have clearly enjoyed, do you think that we'd
What
have
about
spared?
Churchill? I think that if Churchill and Hitler had gone in bed, a lot of people would be alive today.
I see that was well, that's a. It may, you know, it's a way of doing it. Only the shyest people in the world would take pictures like
Well,
this.
the shy people, are they naked? Do they ever become naked or not? Do you think that people that are shy have to wrap
following
themselves
with
up
your
in
description
cotton?
of yourselves as if
Would you
that
consider
is
yourself
a
shy?
picture of two shy people, I'd like to know what shyness is.
May I ask you, would you consider yourself shy?
Oh, I'm just normal, but I think that everybody owes it to the world to prove they have pubic hair. And you've done it. You've done it, and I tell you that I applaud you for it.
I mean, if you want to prove it, you can prove it, though.
I don't feel that there's any great interest in it. Clearly, you must have felt the world wanted to know what your private parts look like, and now the world knows.
As a representative of the human race, I'm speaking for us all, whether you like it or not.
Whatever race you're the representative of, I ain't part of it.
Well,
maybe yours is the human race, and
Everybody
mine
in
is
the
something less hirsute.
Who do you write your cartoons for?
I write my cartoons for money, just as you sing your songs. Exactly the same reason.
Yeah,
and exactly the same reason much of this is happening too, if the truth be told.
But if
Do you think I couldn't earn money by some other way, by sitting in bed for 7 days, taking shit from people like you? I could write a song in an hour and earn more money.
Now, look here. Now, don't say this. You got into bed so people like me
Yeah,
will
right.
see you.
Not for money. That's what you're saying.
It won't do you any real harm. Except you might get.
But I can earn money
But I
in
tell you what
easier
will do
ways
you
than
harm.
doing this.
I'll tell you what would do you harm. So could I. I could make a lot more drawing people like you than confronting you. And I must say it's much more appetizing
okay.
drawing them because I can leave.
I prefer singing to doing this, but I'm doing this for
What
a
you've
reason.
just done is when you said taking shit from people like you. Now I was invited here. You knew I was coming.
Yeah, sure.
That's
Yes,
right.
yes.
So
But we're
that
not doing it for money.
haven't-
You
haven't
indicated
any
I was doing it
manners
for...
at all.
Oh, you have manners?
Why, I'm your guest. And really...
I'm yours.
No, you're not. This is your bedroom. But now, I made some note about you. But this business of going to crucify me, what indications have you had that you're about to be crucified?
I'd say we're all about to be crucified if we don't do something about war.
Yes. Oh, well, we know. That isn't anything new. That's been said a
Well,
long
who's saying
time.
it's something new? Who's making any new claims?
Did you bring this with you?
They followed you in.
No, they couldn't have followed me in because I had a deodorant. And I'm delighted to have met you, Madam New. And JC, I couldn't, you are our answer to Madam New.
Back during slavery, when black people like me talked to the slaves, they didn't kill him. They'd send some old house Negro along behind him to undo what he said. You have to read the history of slavery to understand this. There were two kinds of Negroes. There was that old house Negro and the field Negro. And the house Negro always looked out for his master. When the field Negroes got too much out of line, he held them back in check. He put them back on the plantation. The house Negro could afford to do that because he lived better than the field Negro. He ate better, he dressed better, and he lived in a better house. He lived right up next to his master in the attic or the basement. He ate the same food his master ate and wore his same clothes. And he could talk just like his master. Good diction. And he loved his master more than his master loved himself. That's why he didn't want his master hurt. If the master got sick, he'd say, "What's the matter, boss? We sick?" When the master's house caught a fire, he'd try and put the fire out. He didn't want his master's house burned. He never wanted his master's property threatened. And he was more defensive of it than the master was. That was the house Negro.
But then you had some field Negroes who lived in huts, had nothing to lose. They wore the worst kind of clothes, they ate the worst food, and they caught hell. They felt the sting of the lash. They hated their master. Oh, yes, they did. If the master got sick, they prayed that the master died. If the master's house caught a fire, they prayed for a strong wind to come along. This was the difference between the two. And today you still have house Negroes and field Negroes. I'm a field Negro.
I just don't believe that when a Republican Party bugs the Democratic Party headquarters, that smacks of democracy. These kind of things I speak out against. That doesn't mean I'm a communist.
How do you feel about that, sir?
If she doesn't like it here, I believe that she should coincide with all of those people over there and cohabit with them.
Oh, well, you have very nice manners, sir.
Well.
See, I don't think it's just a matter of stopping the bombing. During the Kennedy and Eisenhower administrations, for example, there was no bombing, and there was a Vietnamese government in Saigon, but it was a Vietnamese government that was installed by the United States. A man called Diem, who was a protege of Cardinal Spellman, who had sat out the war against the French colonialists in the Maryknoll Seminary in New Jersey, was taken out of New Jersey into Saigon as the United States alternative, nationalist alternative to the resistance forces. The Vietnamese people are saying, we want freedom and independence. We don't want a government that is imposed by the United States. I saw children, women, old people, homes, churches, schools leveled to the ground. And I don't believe that the pilots are the murderers. No. Because I believe that the pilots are told that they're bombing military targets, and the POWs told me that that's what they were told. So I don't think that it's their fault.
Well, I don't want... Can't we agree that language like murderer, criminal can be counterproductive, can turn people off, can...
It's a hard word to take, but there are international laws that are signed by the United States, the Hague Convention, the Nuremberg Principles, which lay out what war crimes are. I mean, they are now defined. These are being violated every day under the Nixon administration in Vietnam.
Also quoted as saying that you don't believe there are two sides to this issue. Is it your position that North Vietnam is totally with honor and is in no way responsible for any kind of evil that many people see you so readily condemning on the part of Americans in South Vietnam?
I think that our responsibility as Americans is to concern ourselves with what our country is doing. Daniel Ellsberg said recently, we're not fighting on the wrong side, we are the wrong side. If the United States pulled out of Vietnam, there would be no war. Vietnamization is an artificially created civil war. If we cut off the salaries of the generals, the Saigon generals, who are involved in the heroin ring, the cinnamon trade, and the prostitution ring, it would be over. These men all have bank accounts. They're all very rich off us. Our tax dollars have made them very rich, the fat cats of Saigon. They have bank accounts in Switzerland. Their children go to school in France. They have villas on the south of France on the Riviera. These are the people that our boys are being sent to die to defend. And I think it's wrong. I think it's wrong. And I think there are two sides in as far as the women and men and wives who have lost their husbands and sons and brothers in Vietnam have a great deal at stake. The pilots, I don't think they knew it, but they were dropping weapons on the country which are illegal, which are war crimes. The fact that they are treated, given medical aid, given dental treatment, are alive and well, indicates that these people are humane. They are humane. Never in the
I'm sorry, Miss Fonda. You have disappointed me terribly.
Never in the history of warfare are prisoners of war released, or the families of prisoners of war allowed to visit the prisoners until the war is over.
going to do? We are going to defend ourselves. Because Huey P. Newton said that power is the ability to define phenomena and make it act in a desired manner. Power is the ability to define phenomena and make it act in a desired manner. What kind of phenomena? Social phenomena. What is the social phenomena? Black people, Mexican American, any kind of people begins to learn that the social phenomena is that in fact U.S. racist, decadent, capitalist, imperialistic America is a police state. That a police state exists here, that these pigs are doing nothing but protecting the avaricious businessman and the demagogic politician, protecting the exploitative system that they got going. That in fact we are tired of it, we are sick of it, you've been brutalizing black people, you've been murdering and lynching them, black people are tired of it. Black people are the vanguard of this revolution all of a sudden, and it's phenomenally correct also, but we are concerned with that social phenomena. We are concerned with that exploitation. We are concerned with the oppression that black people and all other people in the world who are suffering the same common oppression that we are suffering today. The thing is that we have the ability to define it. So, if we have the ability to define it, the only next thing to do is get organized. Get organized. So when a pig walks up to you, or a pig gets to jive with the people, you'll be so organized, you'll be learning some tactics, you'll be learning some revolutionary principles, you'll be having some guns hid out somewhere, you have some proper tactics. That when the pig gets to jiving with you, the pig gets wrong, you whoop your guns out on him, blow him away, and then you have the ability, in fact you have made that pig act in a desired manner. But for what? But for what? For a new system, brothers. We need a new system. The people need a new system.
You have the pigs of the mass media who manipulate information, they distort statistics, they distort reports, essentially they distort reality, but we define the pigs as those who are actively involved in the machinery of oppression. 3 categories of evil: avaricious businessmen, demagogic politicians, and the racist pig cops. These are the pigs of the power structure. And Julian Bond wouldn't fall in that particular category. He would fall in the category of all the other black Democrats who are involved in that. They're lackeys from the colony, helping the oppressors from the mother country carry out their oppression.
See, it's no in-between. You're either free or you're a slave. There's no such thing as second-class citizenship. That's like telling me you can be a little bit pregnant.
Well, politics as defined by the geographical and influential spheres of this country is irrelevant to black people and is irrelevant to the masses of people. The vote has been used as a tool of oppression against black people. I mean, Camus raises a very good point when he says, what better way to enslave a man than give him the vote and call him free? See, it does not profit black people or poor people anything to have the vote and not be able to select the candidates who they want to choose. Now, how can you choose between Lyndon Johnson, Nixon, Agnew, Wallace, and Humphrey? There is no choice. Evil is evil. There's nothing in between that. Now, to really believe that we can put someone in office and that these people would be responsive to our needs is naive, politically naive. Because even if one of the black candidates who ran for office was to take the office of president, then black people must be prepared to fight against that person.
Why?
Because, you see, the system mandates the action of the individual. The individual does not determine how this country will function. This country works off the military-industrial complex, which means that it's profitable to wage war. And unless you devise another plan, another scheme to sustain, to boost this economy, then it's going to be necessary to wage war. Whether, a black individual is in office or a white individual is in office. Well, so we're talking about a complete a change in system.
Is this going to be a race revolution or is it going to be a class revolution?
I think, like in terms of struggle and who will comprise the revolutionary front of that struggle, it will be oppressed people. See, black people are in the vanguard position of the struggle because we've been the most dispossessed. However, there are other oppressed people in this country, Mexican American, the Spanish American community, the Puerto Ricans, American Indian, Japanese Americans, and even poor whites. But racism, I don't believe that racism will allow poor whites to form alliances with the revolutionary groups in this country. We cannot rely upon white news media to convey black revolutionary messages. So, like the press is doing their job. And to me, like what happened to me last year with the press was that there was a boycott against me by ABC, NBC, and CBS. Anything that Rap Brown did, like you blacked out. Because, just like that, no question about it. And this was the whole attitude that has been assumed by news media. And black people do not control news media, so they cannot expect to turn on TV and find out what's going on in the black community. Just like, for example, the New York Times, one of the biggest pieces of white nationalism that exists in the country. I think, like black people, the total community of black people are for revolutionary change.
Okay, so that's roughly 11%.
And any group, any oppressed group, who wants to better their situation, out of necessity has to be for revolutionary change, because the system is incapable of changing itself. So by the very fact that it is incapable of changing, it says that you're for revolutionary change.
I see. It follows then that it will not be, there's no way of forecasting when it's going to come about. It's sort of a pressure that is building constantly.
See, as I said, I think revolution is an evolutionary process. I think as repression increases, people must respond to that repression. Now, the dilemma that the black movement is in today is that, there's a divisiveness that exists in the black community between what's considered cultural nationalists and political nationalists. Now, understand, the man or system endorses cultural nationalism. He will give people money to open up dashiki shops, will give people money to open up bookstores, because he knows that if you keep the people thinking culturally, then they won't move politically. My position is that culture has to be political. Everything has to be political. And in terms of the struggle, that political direction will, give rise to the revolutionary struggle as a result of the repression that will be brought down because of political struggle. See, I think that it's significant to note that the laws that have been passed in this country for the past 10 years have been laws of a repressive nature to deal with black people. In other words, the Omnibus Crime Bill speaks directly to black people. So the Anti-Riot Bill tells black people when they can travel, how they can travel, and if they can travel. The McCarran Act of 1950, Internal Security, which came as a result of the Internal Security Act, created concentration camps in this country for black people. And so I think, like in terms of the repression and in terms of the role of the vanguard groups, I think the role of the vanguard group is to bring that repression down before the timetable that has been set up by the system runs its full course. I think it's our responsibility to get the masses involved. And the way you get the masses involved is that you bring the repression down. When you begin to execute political programs, then out of necessity, the system has to do certain things to control or try to, put an end to the type of political action that you're executing. And by doing this, they involve the masses of people. The masses of people, from our position, from our viewpoint, is unorganizable. You can't hope to organize the masses of people. Oppression organizes the masses of people. White folks make more revolutionaries than I ever could make.
You feel that that the law is justice is truly blind, or you feel that it's a...
No, justice ain't blind. Justice see white folks mighty well. As a matter of fact, justice means just us white folks in this country. See, for black people, justice is a joke. No such thing as justice in this country for black people. The courts are a tool of oppression. The courts, help to execute the genocide, the type of genocide that has been practiced against black people in this country for 400 years.
Why is it that there's not much exposure about what you feel, if it is true that justice is not blind, that it does favor one segment of the society? Why isn't it attacked more by responsible agencies?
The very reason that they're responsible means that the very statement responsible agents say that they're not going to respond. Because, in terms of the status quo is never attacked by the comfortable people, the people who profit from it. And so, as to expect, the responsible Negroes or the responsible white people, to attack the system from the basis that poor people and oppressed people will attack it, is out of the question.
You say that America as it stands just cannot be as far as the black man is concerned. Does this mean that the democratic idea, not how it's practiced, but the idea of a democracy is not valid?
I think that in terms of, there has been no successful example of democracy as it's taught in this country. I'm not even talking about as it's practiced. I'm talking about as it's taught in this country.
How about the Constitution?
Looks good on paper. I think, the Constitution has a lot of valid ideas and thoughts. But you see that the contradictions that exist in this country are created out of the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment. And otherwise, Constitution is nothing but white people's paper. It's advantageous and it's favorable for white people. They created contradictions to the Constitution when they added the 13th, 14th, 15th Amendment.
Rap, what effect is the end of the Vietnam War going to have on the situation here in this country?
I think that if, America has ever run out of Vietnam and defeated, as they should be in Vietnam, then black people over here will have to, be in a position where they can defend themselves. Because I think that aggression that's being directed against the Vietnamese people will be turned inwardly against black people in this country. See, America, in terms of where she goes and, who she controls, a whole sphere of influence is diminishing. America is fighting on about 5 to 6 different fronts right now. Latin America, like Africa, Middle East, and Vietnam, and here domestically. So I think that, given the system and given that it operates off the military-industrial complex, which means that war is profitable and that, General Steel, USS Steel must make steel for tanks to hire people, to give people jobs so they can spend the money to buy other goods. The very fact that the system operates off that principle means that when the man comes back, when the man is run out of every country, then it will become necessary to wage war in his own country.
This is an utter contradiction to what a lot of politicians said, that when the war in Vietnam ends, then we can use all that money to sort of solve our racial ills here.
No, it's not true, you see, because money has never been a problem for this country in terms of allotting money, because, you see, money here is not based on gold. It's not really based on the goods that produce. See, this is the lie that's been told, and it's been sold to black people as green power. Green power is a myth. See, because as long as a man possesses the power to change the color of money, then, the color of money is not significant in struggle. He can give black people all the green money in the world and tell them they're using red money tomorrow. Black people have to go work for red money. In terms of what he did to the international monetary system. Now, the United States has a budget, annual budget of $800 billion. They had only $12 billion worth of gold. In terms of their foreign spending, it exceeded the quantity of gold that they had in this country. So France was putting pressure on the United States by demanding payment in gold from paper currency. So what the United States did was that the United States said, okay, we're going to change the rules. They put pressure on the international monetary system, and they changed the whole international monetary standards from gold to paper gold. And they did that because they have power. Not because the money they had was so good. They had power.
Thank you, Rap.
Imam Jamil Al-Amin has been behind bars in the Georgia State Prison in Reidsville since March 16, 2002, for a crime he insists he did not commit. In August of 2007, he was transferred to another solitary cell in the Florence State Prison in Colorado, 1,400 miles away from Georgia, impeding family and friends from regular visits. Also being isolated from any contacts with other inmates, barring him from worship with anyone else. Like It Is will continue to follow this story.
My conscience won't let me go shoot my brother or some darker people or some poor, hungry people in the mud for big, powerful America and shoot them for what? They never called me nigger. They never lynched me. They never put no dogs on me. They never robbed me of my nationality, raped and killed my mother and father. What, I'm going to shoot them for what? How am I going to shoot them? Them little poor little black people, and little babies and children and women. How can I shoot them poor people? I would just take me to jail.
Martin Luther King in his own way, Malcolm X in his own way, Marcus Garvey in his own way, Du Bois in his way, Nat Turner in his way, Lumumba in his way, Ho Chi Minh in his way, Castro in his way, all are dealing with trying to get the hog out of the stream of freedom for people in this world.
At the University of California at Los Angeles, a new chancellor, Charles E. Young, was installed today. And though there were advance warnings of demonstrations and possible violence, nothing happened. And that, in these times, is news.
At 3 o'clock, in an auditorium where cameras were not permitted, there was an overflow crowd for Philosophy 99, for the teacher who was not supposed to be teaching.
Before I proceeded to lecture today, I asked the students whether or not they wanted me to teach. They indicated that they did, and therefore I lectured. And they indicated that they want me to continue to lecture.
Will you continue to teach?
Will I continue to teach?
Yes.
Yes.
I thought the lecture was amazing. It was an extremely fine lecture.
I think basically I was very impressed with her. I think she's a fine speaker.
Extremely interesting and provocative. J. Edgar Hoover considers the Communist Party of the United States a grave internal threat. Many on campus consider it a bore, an irrelevancy, and are not greatly alarmed that Miss Davis, though a member of the Communist Party of the United States, should be allowed to teach a class. They feel that the regents, fearing a communist in a classroom, are overestimating the Communist Party and underestimating students. Jack Perkins, NBC News, UCLA.
Angela Davis, the admitted communist, has been teaching philosophy at UCLA this past year. She is controversial, but her students said she'd been a good teacher, and the university rehired her for next year. But today, in a rare action, the Board of Regents voted 15-6 to overrule the university and fire her. Governor Reagan voted with the majority. He said it wasn't because she's a communist, but rather because she is unprofessional. While the Regents were voting, Miss Davis was a few blocks away in a rally protesting the treatment of black prisoners in Soledad State Prison. She sees her dismissal as a case of political repression, which she may or may not challenge.
I'm going to keep on struggling to free the Soledad brothers and all political prisoners, because I think that what has happened to me is only a very tiny, minute example of what is happening to them. I suppose I just lost that job at UCLA as a result of my political opinions and activities.
Did you expect this verdict?
The verdict doesn't make any difference. It's what has led up to the verdict. He has not had a fair trial. There are many more men who are not having fair trials. They've hid us word from you. Charlie hasn't been able to speak in the courtroom. The defendants haven't been able to put on a defense. They've thrown the Constitution in the wastebasket. Where does that leave your law? It's anarchy. Total anarchy is coming.
You plan to continue to sit here indefinitely?
Yep. We'll be here however long we're here.
What do you plan to accomplish by sitting here?
We're waiting for those penitentiaries and those jail doors to open.
What's going to open them?
The system where a man cannot defend himself. Are you proud of it?
That was an 8-month trial with many witnesses. What are you going to do now?
That was a trial, 8 months of prosecution testimony. They've convicted these people, and you are next, all of you.
What are you
doing now?
Listen to me. There are many more men who are experiencing the same injustice. There's a revolution coming very soon.
What would you do next now? What are you going to do right now?
We're going to stay here until Charlie's out.
Looks like that will be never.
He'll be out. All the people will be out.
What makes you so sure?
Angela Davis will be out. Bobby Seale will be out. There's a revolution coming. You've all judged yourselves.
4 persons, including 2 women, were shot and killed on Kent State University's campus today during renewed demonstrations involving hundreds of students. The university was ordered closed as disorders continued for more than 2 hours. 6 other persons were reported shot in addition to those killed. The 4 persons were killed during a clash between students and members of the Ohio National Guard outside Taylor Hall near the University Commons, where an Army ROTC building was burned down Saturday night.
I believe in freedom. I believe in young people. I believe in courage. I believe in making mistakes and taking responsibility for yourself. I can't lose. That's the tide of history. That's freedom.
Why do you think you were sent to prison?
Well, they said that I was the #1 enemy to the Judeo-Christian adult authority that was running the hive at the moment, namely J. Edgar Hoover, Spyro Agnew, remember him? Richard Nixon. You wonder why they put me in jail? The reason was, of course, that the Nixon administration had told the American people the #1 corrupting influence and danger to the American way of life is drugs. And he was absolutely right. Now, he couldn't do anything about it. The more he talked about drugs, the more billions of dollars he put into his army of narcs that went around the world bothering people, more and more people were taking drugs. So he had no successes to show, but if he could arrest what he and his colleagues thought was the spokesperson or the leading figures, I was a symbol of it. That's what I think. What do you think?
What was happening the night that Nixon resigned to you? Did you think there would be a great deal of change?
Well, we knew back, any sensible observer of the human situation knew in 1968 that it was going to be a reaction. That the adult authority, the older generation, was really angry that the young people refused to grow up and be like them. So Nixon and Reagan were both elected on the campaign of crush the kids, stop the dissent in the colleges. We all know that. So it was inevitable that you have that reaction, and it was also inevitable that that kind of reaction wouldn't hold, because basically the American people don't want a government of spies and wiretapping. We don't want a government that's drafting our kids and sending them off. We don't want a government of narcotics agents busting into middle-class people's houses. Everything about that was against the American way of life. Before the 1960s, there was no notion of pleasure. You worked 5 days a week, 6 days a week, and on Saturday nights you were allowed to get drunk and bump up and down your wife for reproductive purposes, maybe. There was no notion of pleasure. Pleasure was something that was owned by the priests and the big guys in the sky. Well, for every little pleasure there's a pain, pain, pain. That's what they taught us back then. Well, now pleasure is our #1 business. So don't tell me that nothing happened in the 60s. The 60s have taken over. By pleasure, I mean self-indulgence, self-actualizing, recreation, recreational vehicles, going and coming where you want to, private airplanes, waterbeds, all this new sensuality, the new emphasis on aesthetics.
What the hell do you think you're doing? Dragging your butt through the day, selling body and soul to a bunch of bland normals? Acting stupid so they'll think you're one of them? Tired of getting all of the guilt, but none of the sex? There is a simple answer, dear friend. A glowing beacon of slack amidst the turmoil and darkness. It's J.R. Bob Dobbs, the living slack master, and his Church of the Subgenius. Bob brings a new destiny for the abnormal, for Bob comes to justify our sins, to unmask the conspiracy, and to get us back the slack they stole away. It's us versus them. Are you gonna fry in hell on earth alongside the pink boys, or will you pull the wool over your own eyes and accept Bob into your mind? Repent, quit your job, slack off, and praise Bob!
Church of the Subgenius, eternal salvation, or triple your money back.